Welcome, everybody. This is Jonathan, one of your co-hosts for today and Global Head of Research at MIPAD, the most influential people of African descent.
Hey there, I'm Aziza, fellow co-host, brand and content consultant, founder of Own Your Own Narrative 54, and class of 2023 MIPAD honoree.
And you're listening to the Voices of Influential People podcast, or as we like to call it, the VIP, a show brought to you by MIPAD, the most influential people of African descent, aimed at connecting you to today's most influential people of African descent worldwide. Now, today's episode is titled Connectology, and we have a special guest with us today. He's Mr. Connectologist himself, the founder and visionary of MIPAD, who recognize high achievers of African descent in collaboration with the United Nations International Decade for People of African Descent. His name is Kamil Olufowobi.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. And Happy New Year to you. It's such an amazing and privileged opportunity to be with you as we kick off the year, to be a part of this VIP Voice of Influential People of African Descent podcast. Super excited. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you, Kamil, for coming on. Now, we have personal relationships with you, Aziza and I, but I want the guests, our audience, to get to know you as well. So I know that you alternate in between two different locations during the year, maybe a couple more. But where are you calling in from now?
Yeah, I'm dialing in from Lagos right now. I'm on the continent, and I'm privileged, like you said, to have, two homes really, which is on the continent here in Lagos and in New York City as well. So I'm bicontinental, and I really hope more of us can actually get the opportunity to do that. During the winter times, I love to be here, in the tropics, enjoying some sun here and back in New York for work. So yeah, this is, a great opportunity. That's, an opportunity I hope more of us will be able to take advantage of.
Most definitely. It's snowing here in London, so I'm trying to fly out to wherever you are.
Exactly. Absolutely.
To get to know your personality a bit more, I want to ask a question that you've answered to me, and I enjoy the answer of, which is, what is your favorite film and why?
All right. First thing that comes to mind is The Matrix. I hope that's the same one I mentioned the last. Okay, good. So The Matrix, yeah. It remains my all-time favorite for many reasons. It's truly a reflection of the world that we live in today. And the work that we do today at MIPAD, it resonates because we're trying to free the minds of millions of our people from what Bob Marley calls, mental slavery. And it is for our people to be able to understand and liberate our mind so that we can liberate Africa and its people around the world. So yes, favorite movie all time, The Matrix.
Okay, thank you for that one, Kamil. And so we started off by introducing MIPAD briefly, but in your words for the audience, what is MIPAD to the world and what does it signify to people of African descent?
Well, MIPAD is the world's #1 global network for people of African descent. And what that means is we've built a global ecosystem that has people of African descent from all over the world, sometimes in unexpected places, from Argentina to Zimbabwe. We exist all over the world. And it is okay for us to be dispersed, but what is not okay is the disconnection. So this is where MIPAD has come in, is supporting us to create an ecosystem, not an ecosystem of some of the best and the brightest minds around the world, getting us to work together for the glory of Africa and our global diaspora. So for me, MIPAD is a safe haven that we've created for us to be authentically ourselves, to live and strive in excellence. So talking about MIPAD and the work that we do addressing systemic racism around the world, the way I like to explain it is racism is a global virus that has infected the heart of humanity, and putting one race, over another one superior than the other. And one of the core ingredients of vaccine to cure this global virus is a global awareness, right, of our presence around the world and who we are as a collective. They are united around the world about us, based on the color of our skin, but we are divided on how we respond to that, right? So we suffer systemic oppression in our silos. And our mission at MIPAD is to connect us together, to understand that some solutions that you might have in your silo in Chicago, I can actually use it in Costa Rica or use it in Argentina or Brazil to address the same systemic racism that impacts all of us. So we are divided, but racism is globally united. So our mission is to create a collective, a global collective that can help us to rise up together against global systemic racism, right? So we want to move us away from the silos to a globally connected community. So you touch one of us anywhere in the world, you touch all of us, right? So you discriminate against a person of African descent in Argentina, the entire, global African diaspora or the global people of African descent rise up and address that issue. Same thing happened with George Floyd. That was when we truly started to feel a global consciousness that you touch one of us, you touch all of us. And that is what we are working towards at MIPAD.
We see too that, as you mentioned, these are things simultaneously happening across the diaspora. So as you mentioned, George Floyd, the tragedy within that, when we look at the favelas in Brazil, they're also facing, brutality when it comes to police brutality. So it's like we can see it, and it's very evident, that, like you said, it's going to take a multi-pronged, approach to all of it.
Approach, a global worldview. For us to actually tackle this, because the issues are the same. The localities are just different, right? The issues are exactly the same: systemic racism in education, in healthcare, in economics, in lending. It's all the same. It's just different locality. And what we plan to do is to bring us all together and get us working together. So true story, I'll tell you, in MIPAD, when I met with the first vice president of Costa Rica, Black female, who was the first vice president of African descent in the world of Costa Rica, she met through MIPAD the first member of parliament of African descent in Pakistan. And the first interaction they both had is, I didn't know Black people lived in Pakistan. And the quick comeback was, I didn't know Black people lived in Costa Rica either. How did you become vice president? Right. And by the time they went through that conversation, I overheard both of them going, oh, we should try that in Pakistan, to teach young girls, how to groom their hair, their kinky hair. This was a program that, the vice president of Costa Rica was doing for young girls, for young Black girls in Costa Rica. So that knowledge sharing for me in two parts of the world, both of them didn't even realize they both existed there, but they were facing the same issues as people of African descent. So these are some of the possibilities that MIPAD has been able to create, for our people, the connectivity, the sharing of ideas, of solving issues related to systemic racism.
Thank you, Kamil. And it's exactly like you said, it's okay for us to be dispersed, but not okay for us to be disconnected. So us identifying these high achievers of African descent with different takes on view, different world views, different world experiences, and bringing them under one roof every single year to challenge these issues that we face in racism. It's that collectivist approach is how we tackle it.
Absolutely. And over the years, bringing people of African descent together in a safe space, right, has opened up new understanding, new possibilities, because at times you had no one to share these things with, right? People who could understand your experiences. You're a physicist of African descent. You're probably one of the smartest people on this planet, but because of your color, you've gone through some things you couldn't share until you met another financial genius or, another physicist of African descent who you probably never get to meet doing what you do, right? So what MIPAD has done is these great minds get this opportunity, safe space to actually share the experiences they've had combating systemic racism. And then in that, community, able to come up with new solutions that we can now share with others and say, hey, we did this in Costa Rica, or we did that in Brazil, or we did this in Chicago, or, and we did this in Africa to combat these very issues that are impacting our people around the world, our different communities around the world.
Fantastic. And we know that MIPAD is also rooted in this amazing art of connectology. And your approach to building, MIPAD is rooted in that. And so it might be kind of a new concept, to some of our audience members, but could you describe, your journey and evolution actually from networking into connecting?
Absolutely. Thank you for that question. So connectology is the phrase I coined over the years. And really it's the breakdown is of two words, right? To connect and ology. So the study of connections. That's what connectology is. And for me, the philosophy behind connectology is that connections are all around us. Each and every one of us are on this planet through a connection. When you begin to see the world around you through the lenses of connections, you begin to unlock new possibilities. So for me, that is a philosophy that has guided my journey personally. So I would say the evolution started, with networking, right? So networking is the outreach to others to achieve a specific goal. What tends to happen with networking is once you get what you want, you get off that bus, right? So over the years, what I've learned is to build real and authentic relationships, you have to connect with people and like a stamp, stick together until we both get to the promised land, right? So to create win-win outcomes in relationships. So connectology, based on just the structure of the word, is really the study of connections. And when you begin to see the world through the lenses of these connections that exist around us, everything is connected. Everyone is connected. When you begin to see the world through the lenses of connections, you begin to unlock new possibilities. And that's what MIPAD is today, right? This global network of connections. And it has been a privilege for me to be at the center of it and to share with the world this concept, not just in theory, but actualize it through a platform like MIPAD.
Absolutely. And that ecosystem of excellence, that we are surrounded and beautifully connected through is something that is amazing. And we would love to figure out a way to understand how can we all better use the art of connectology, to make better connections, whether it's our personal journeys, whether it's in our careers, whether it's in our journey as creating something like you did, something amazing like MIPAD, like you did. But how can we actually use the art
Absolutely.
of connectology to make better connections?
Absolutely. So connectology begins with connecting first with yourself. This is a core difference between connectology and networking, right? Many people go out there, trying to connect with others when they haven't connected with themselves. So what that means is, who are you and why are you here on this planet? When you have a better understanding of your gift, your purpose, and your calling on this planet, it makes connecting with others so much more smoother because you know why you're here. And the purpose of why you're here on this planet is to be in service to others, right? And align that, with the divine calling upon your life. What were you uniquely designed to do on this planet? So really it begins first with you. Who are you? And why are you here on this planet? So a lot of our teachings and our courses at MIPAD with Connectology is to help you understand that, right? The basic, what is your gift, your purpose, and your calling. Once you understand that, it now paves the path for you to begin to connect and create new and authentic relationships. So it begins first with you. And that's the core difference between networking and connectology. Connectology is about who am I, what's my gift, my purpose, and my calling. Why am I here on this planet? Connecting first with myself, then with others for the purpose of being in service to others. So yeah, you can learn more about that through our course, our 21-day challenge to become the best version of yourself. Would really support you with the fundamentals of connectology.
Awesome. Fantastic. And we couldn't have said it better ourselves, Jonathan or I. So that's great that we have you here to break it down. Yeah, for
Absolutely.
us, because like you said, there's so much power in connecting, and it also helps us kind of see that we're not so different, right? Like the threads of all of us are woven in this amazing fabric that brings us together and shows us that we don't have as many differences, as we might have thought. And
Right.
mhm.
Absolutely.
And I know that, for you, building bridges throughout the world and throughout the diaspora has been very important. And there's something that you also talk
Yeah.
about, after we go through connectology and understand that it does begin with us. We also have to sometimes deal with overcoming some barriers or understanding the gatekeepers.
Right.
And so I would love to, have
Ah,
you, speak
right.
about that, because that's very powerful and how you share that and the grand scope of everything.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I have a tool that I usually lean into. Every time I walk into a room, I have a sense of who I am and who's in the room. And that philosophy has helped unlock new possibilities. So I have this ability to be able to, walk into a room, know who the players are, and then act accordingly. Right. So the idea or the logic basically says if you know that you're a change agent, right, and you want to change whatever circumstance you're in, the reason why change is usually slow is because all the parties required for that change are not present in the room. And one of the things we tend to do is to gravitate towards, change makers like ourselves, right, which is comfortable for us. What I always advise is for you to begin to understand who are the architects of the space that you're trying to change, who are the gatekeepers of that system you want to change, who are you if you're a change agent, and then who are the others, who the pawns, the everyone else who doesn't really have a horse in the race. So really the understanding is knowing who the architects are, who the gatekeepers are, who the change agents are, and then who everyone else, who are the pawns in that. So once you're able to establish that in any room that you walk into, what I advise is lean into having conversations with the architects, if possible with the change agents, to help them see where you're coming from and why you're fighting for change in that system, knowing that, everybody has a stake. I trust that philosophy resonates whenever we're in a room. And I always ask people, how many of you believe you're change agents? 99% of the hands in the room, go up. And I say, this is it. We're in our comfort zone. We're in the same room with people who are change agents. We know something ain't right. We're all trying to change it. And we're here to kumbaya. And I'm saying, no, let's get out there and get into the people who want to stop Africa from being, we say Africa is unstoppable, right? But then there are people out there trying to stop Africa from achieving its potential. So we shy away from engaging those people. And I'm saying, let us take that head on and touch, move, and inspire them to support Africa to unlock its full potential. So I hope that helps in framing, knowing who you are when you walk into a room, knowing who's in the room, and then acting accordingly so you can achieve the change that is required to touch, move, and inspire others into the movement that we are all working towards.
Thank you, Kamil. And you've managed to do that a lot with MIPAD to build it to the global success that it is today. And one last point touching on what you just said is, how do you identify those who are gatekeepers? Because a lot of them might look like you and I, on the call.
Absolutely. So this is system change. What I just shared with you is system change, right? So when you say they look like us, now you're talking about change, systemic racism, right? So systemic racism is a system. right? And it can be controlled and managed by people who look like us, but we tend not to be the construct or the architects of that system. So people who don't look like us are typically the architects of that system, but people that look like us could be the gatekeepers of that system, right? So just keep that in mind. And when it comes to sexism, for example, when it comes to gender equality, right? The system was created by men, right? But the gatekeepers could be men or women. There's some women who are also, supporting and sustaining, gender inequality, right? So that's what I mean in being able to identify who is an architect, who is a gatekeeper, who the system change agents are, and of course, who are the pawns, everyone else who doesn't have a horse in the race.
Thank you, Kamil. Thank you for your explanation and going into the, before we touched on the International Decade for People of African Descent, which is what MIPAD is working on. But many people don't know that it's a decade that was declared not in like 2010 to 2020, but this was declared 2015 to 2024 by the United Nations. So now going forward, we're in the year 2024 now. So closing the decade and going forward, what does that look like for you and for MIPAD?
Absolutely. Well, thank you for asking that question. Yes, MIPAD really did start a global outreach in support of the United Nations International Decade for People of African Descent, which was established 2015 to run for 10 years, 2024. And this year is the closing year for the decade. And for me, what that means is a decade-long initiative that has supported me personally to meet and connect with people of African descent from all over the world. I have to admit, what I know now and what I knew when we started, it's just a massive, gap and a new knowledge, new understanding of our people and where we are all over the world and the positive contributions that we're making around the world. So as the decade ends now, we're transitioning into what we call the permanent forum. So this is a permanent forum at the United Nations for issues impacting people of African descent all over the world to still be heard twice a year in New York at the headquarters and also in Geneva at the Human Rights, OHCHR, the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, who has overseen the decade since inception. So this interview, this podcast is coming at a very crucial time. And I'm super excited because I'm closing out the decade with my book, the book of the decade, I like to call it, on my journey on connecting with people of African descent from all over the world. What I now know that I didn't know that I want to share with the world. For example, the largest number of people of African descent outside of Africa live in Brazil. I had the privilege to go to Brazil, to Bahia, and I experienced, I'm Yoruba. I experienced African culture in a way I had never seen it before because our ancestors who were taken and enslaved in the Americas held onto our cultures, held onto our traditions in a way that we on the continent haven't actually done that. We whitewashed it down on the continent, but they still have the real and authentic, cultures of our ancestors, in places like Brazil, in Cuba, in South America, and across the Americas. So yes, the decade is coming to an end, but we still have a platform and a forum to address issues that are impacting people of African descent around the world, leveraging the UN mechanisms, UN platform to get, answers to these issues that are impacting our communities around the world.
That is absolutely phenomenal. And we are so happy, that we've had that powerful decade, but it doesn't end. It continues with us. And
Right.
It's a beautiful thing, to know that it's going to continue to grow and that we have all of these wonderful platforms. And I have to say, could you just sign me up as number one for your book club? Because I know that book is going to be amazing.
Absolutely. It's projected to be a bestseller. It's the book of the decade. And the idea is coming along with me on this journey of discovering who we are, our positive contributions around the world, truly understanding the global African diaspora and the need for a connectivity. So yes, definitely look out for that. Yeah, so thank
We
you so much
will.
for this opportunity to be on
Yeah.
the Voices of Influential People, the VIP podcast by MIPAD, as a platform to hear from all of these people that we've met along the way. I like to say from Argentina, from Afro-Argentinians to Afro-Brazilians, Afro-Caribbeans, Afro-Indians, Aborigines in Australia. I mean, literally from A to Z, from Argentina to Zimbabwe, right here on the continent of Africa. So much diversity, so much, of our people and our culture that we have not really really tapped into. So yes, thank you for having this platform to enable us to have, to hear the voices of our people from all over the world. So thank you, Aziza and Jonathan, for hosting this platform.
Absolutely. And we thank you for believing in it and supporting in it. And before we let you go, because we know that the audience is like chomping at the bits because they want to ask you a question. So we actually have a question from the audience and we want to get some of your words of wisdom. And, you can give one quick tip. If you have two, you can give two. But,
Okay.
we enjoyed all the gems that you've shared, but actually one of the audience members, wants to know, how do you actually go about finding your purpose in life? Because we've talked about how important purpose is, and it's very central to all of the things that we've spoken about. But how does one actually go about finding their purpose? So do you have a
Well, that's the easy one. Finding your purpose is the easiest one because every one of us, our purpose on this planet is to be in service to others, not in service to self, right? So when you begin to see your life as a gift, I like to say, I am a gift to the world, and so are you. And your purpose is to give that gift that is you in the service of others. Now, the tough one is finding your calling, what you were uniquely designed to do, what you were called to do. You see, many people are using their life, which is a gift, for a purpose they were not called for, which is why a lot of people are not living a fulfilled life. Even when they have all the material things, something is always missing because they are using their life for a purpose that they were not designed for. So the tough one, which no one can really tell you, is your calling. So there's a difference between your purpose and your calling. And the quick difference to support you is that your purpose, you have choice. You can choose to use your life for anything you want. But your calling is what you were actually called by your creator to do, right? So when those two things don't align, that's why you lack fulfillment. So our role through our Connectology courses and trainings is to support people to understand that they are a gift to this world. Their purpose is to use that gift in the service of others and align that with God's calling upon their life. So for example, myself, I would say, my name is Kamil and I am a connectologist. And I am committed to giving my gift of connectology to the world, right? In the service of others to create win-win outcomes, to create a world where I win and you win, right? So I am clear about my gift, my life. My purpose is to be here in service of others and to give, that gift to connect others to their purpose and their calling. I hope that
absolutely. And
helps.
so yes, and I know our audience will absolutely take that up and soak it in, because we need to also add theologist, theologian, and a amen, because we need to give
Oh,
you
absolutely. Oh
that
yeah,
was a word. That was
absolutely.
a word. And we thank you for
That
that.
was a word. Absolutely.
That was a
Absolutely.
word.
And you can learn it. I
So
mean, the beauty of it, is that it's just age old knowledge, right? Each and every one of us on this planet matters, right? So if you matter and you are a gift to this world, give that gift in the service of others, right?
Beautiful, beautiful. And as Camille mentioned, we can all sign up for the 21-day Connectology course. You can go to shop.mipad.org to actually enroll in the course. So do it as soon as you can.
So thank you, Camille. We want to thank you for blessing us with your conversation, blessing us with your presence, and we want to congratulate you as an official inductee into the VIP suite. So congratulations,
Woo-hoo!
Camille. And
I love
to our
that.
listeners,
Thank you so much.
This has been Jonathan and Aziza. Make sure to listen to our next episode of the Voices of Influential People podcast.
We're signing off, Aziza
All right, this has been
and
good.
Jonathan. Thank you so much.